Wednesday, March the 1st. Lake levels, same it's been the last month or so. It's 906 and 3/4, changes a couple inches each day. One day it'll go up, next day it goes down. Water temperature, it actually had come up a bunch last week. I mean, there was some, 53 to 57 degree water, but we had a big cold front come in this weekend. And it seems to be back up around 51, 52 degrees right now in the morning. Now, when that water started warming up last week, a lot of fish were starting to move quite a bit. But then we had that massive cold front come through, got down in the 20s, Saturday and Sunday morning. But actually, the fishing was still pretty good, I thought, Saturday. And I think Sunday was tougher, which is kind of normal, kind of a post-frontal conditions. But I think the fishing's actually getting better and better each day. Fish are really on the move. They're headed, towards the spawning pockets. And there's such a variety of way to catch fish right now. There's still some deep fish, some vertical fish, drop shot and a spoon or ice fishing jig. But that seems to be less and less every day, which is kind of normal because those fish are moving up out of that deeper water, starting to head to areas where they're going to spawn. Now, you can still catch some fish out over deep water, but they're not deep, 10, 15 foot. There were several tournaments this weekend. Seemed to be 16, 17 pounds was the leading weights in most of them. I mean, there was 3 or 4 pretty good sized ones. Now, a lot of the way I'm catching fish a lot of different ways. It depends on the wind and what arm of the lake, but I don't think there's one arm of the lake that seems to be producing a lot better than the other. Water temperature is pretty much consistent from one end to the next, with the exception you get into the river arms like the Upper James, the Upper Kings in the afternoon, where that water's off color, it's a lot warmer. But a lot of the way I've been catching them and how I caught them this weekend, I've been catching them on a variety of swim baits. Now, this is a little 2.8 rigged up on a 1/4 ounce head. This one's a Strike King. It's like a 3.8, and I've got it on a scrounger head. This is a little Kitech, and I've got this on a 1/2 ounce Revenge, just a swim bait head. And I've got one on a 3/8 ounce. That's another Strike King that I've got on a 3/8 ounce underspin or fish head. Now, regardless of which bait I throw, I'm pretty much throwing them all the same way. I'm trying to find the fish on my electronics, and I'm just out off the outside of a lot of these bluff ends, some of these flat gravel points. When I find the fish suspended, I'm counting the bait down, either about a 5 to 10 count, depends how deep I see the fish, and working the baits real slow. Now, sometimes when it gets real windy, which it has been the last couple days, it's hard to fish the swim baits or that light line stuff on them points like that. So what I'm doing, I'm going to a jerk bait, and I'm getting up there a little bit shallower on these transition banks where it goes from bigger rock to smaller rock, and I'm throwing a lot of different, this is one particular one here, a Mega Bass. It's kind of a translucent, it's got a little blue and purple on the back. If it's cloudy and overcast, I'm throwing like a bone color or a white. And I'm working it pretty aggressively, anywhere from about 8 to 10 feet off the bank up to about 20 to 25 feet. Now, some other things that'll work in that same area is a crankbait. Rock crawler seems to be working good, wigglewort, Strike King 3X series, anything in a crawdad pattern. Seems to be a lot of moss in some ends, areas of the lake. So if you're fishing a crankbait, you either got to get outside of that moss, which is, you get out much past 6 or 8 feet, and the moss isn't too bad unless you brush up against some timber. And a lot of times, and another way I've caught some fish the last few days too is you can catch fish on a jig. You can catch fish right now on a Ned rig. And this is a pig sticker, pig rig. I've talked about it quite a bit, but it's a lot like a Biffle hardhead. And I've got a Zoom Ultra Vibe Speed Craw on there. Another good bait to throw on it is a Strike King Menace. And what I'm doing, if I'm fishing just inside the points with the jig and the wobble head, if it's too windy I'll fish a crankbait or a jerkbait. If it's slick and smooth, I'll either fish the little swim bait, or I'll pick up the jig or the wobble head and just keep it in contact with bottom. And most of my bites seem like they're coming from about 8 to 12 to 15 foot deep. And you can throw a Ned rig in the same area. Myself, I like to throw a jerkbait and a crankbait more, so I'm probably fishing that a lot more than I am the jig. That's why I'm getting more bites on those two baits. But I think it's whatever you got confidence in. And, you know, kind of a rule of thumb, if it's too windy to throw light line stuff, you know, pick up a reaction bait. If the wind's not too bad, because you got to be able to feel the bottom, and the bite is really light. They're not biting so good right now that if you don't feel it, they're going to hold on. They seem to be picking up the bait and dropping it pretty quick. So if you're fishing a bottom bait like a jig or the Ned rig, you got to have pretty slick conditions so you can feel the bite. So, you know, everything seems to be probably a good 2 weeks ahead of schedule. I think is where the fish are starting to set up now. I'm seeing a lot more smallmouth the last few days moving up on some of these gravel banks. So this is stuff that usually happens second, third week in March. So, I mean, I think we're 2-3 weeks ahead of schedule. If it'll stay warm, we should even start to see some fish on beds before the end of the month in the next 2-3 weeks. So, till next week, good luck, good fishing.